Don't look now, but QB1 is stacking good days in camp. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. What is up, everybody? It is Jake Arthur and Andrew Moore reporting to you live from Indianapolis Colts training camp, Grand Park Sports Complex here, beautiful Westfield, Indiana. Being on site, you guys already know you're going to hear plenty of background noise probably. Today, not so much machinery, more so roosters. So if you hear some cock-a-doodle-doo in the background, do not worry. Next door has roosters. That adds to the charm of this place, to be honest with you. But today we had day 2 of Indianapolis Colts training camp. They got started on Thursday, already took a quick day off Friday, got back to it for a little over an hour today. Really more of the same. The offense focused more so on first and second down packages, though, and the run game and RPOs. Things were really condensed on Thursday because it was the red zone. I mean, the offense had a good day, but obviously your playbook isn't as vast at that point. So we'll tell you, what went on with Anthony Richardson, look at the offense and the defense as well. So let's go ahead and talk about Anthony. So like we mentioned at the top of the show, he is stacking good days. More fodder for those of us who have taken it upon ourselves to argue with people who do not know better on Twitter. I am unfortunately guilty of it. But so he was 4 of 5 in 11 on 11 work on Thursday, was 4 of 4 today, which is, I mean, the red zone on Thursday is great because it's the hardest area of the field to throw the ball. But to be 4 of 4 during 11 on 11s when you have the entire field open to you, and there was a lot of downfield work going on, I was pretty impressed by that. So, I mean, this was your first, you haven't seen him since he got injured. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're a great person to ask about this. What was your impression of him today?
He just looks so much more confident out there, really. He's, especially in 11 on 11, you look at Anthony Richardson and that processing speed is there. Mm-hmm. You don't see, it's not like he hasn't played football in 9 months. When in all actuality, he really hasn't played football in 9 months, but he looks like he knows where to go with the football. The football has been accurate in those 11 on 11 sessions. He really dropped some throws into buckets deeper down the field because the Colts were taking some shots with those first and second down plays. But again, he looks poised back there. He is still the perfectionist Anthony Richardson. So when a play doesn't go right or there are mental errors that are made on a play, you definitely see the frustration in Anthony Richardson. But overall, it doesn't seem like he hasn't played any meaningful football since last October. He looks like he's very comfortable back there. You can tell that he has a full mastery of the offense. There isn't anything that he is having to slow down or that he is second-guessing himself. Really, he's just focusing on getting better and getting prepared for the season, which is good to see. That's what you really wanted to see out of Anthony Richardson throughout training camp is you didn't want to see a setback. You wanted to see him pick right back up where he left off, and that certainly has been the case these first 2 days of camp.
Yeah, I think so too. He definitely looks like he hasn't missed a beat. Like I've seen plenty of practices from him before, and I expect to see at least a couple more this summer where it just does not go well. He looks rusty or like a rookie, what have you, because, again, he is still very young, both in age and his experience. But I noticed I feel like I noticed real growth today, or some changes in him. So I talked about this on Thursday's show. Historically for him, I've seen a lot of his practices in 7-on-7s. Again, whether it's just stuff he's testing out or he's being patient, whatever, his clock is not fast wound in 7-on-7s. Today, very decisive. The ball got out quick. There were big plays. He checks down a lot during practice. We've seen him in live game situations. He tends to go downfield a little more. But during practice, he checks down and goes short a lot. Today, we saw everything opened up. He hit Josh Downs on a play of about 30 yards. He hit Michael Pittman from about 40 yards. He had another one where I think I don't know, but Kenny Moore was in coverage. It might have been AD, but he had another one where he uncorked it deep left. It was incomplete, but he was just more aggressive today. And to me, when I see someone being quick, decisive, and aggressive, that shows confidence and comfort. This was just an hour and 15-minute practice, but I felt like I saw growth.
I think so too. And again, I think it goes back to that comfortability within this system. He only played 4 games last year. He still was in the building every single day. He was in those meetings. Shane Steichen has talked about giving him those various projects throughout the season to really speed up his ability to process information, his ability to process those defenses. And so that way, when he was healthy and able to come out here, he wasn't starting over from scratch. And I think we've really seen that because of how he's looked. So again, he's been very, very efficient in the 11-on-11 period. With 2 days under his belt, he's now 8 of 9 in those 11-on-11 periods, and he's been accurate with the football. So again, you may see some videos on X and some people claiming that routes against air and that's what matters, but no, it's when you're going up against that live defense. And like you said, Jake, there's going to be days where Anthony Richardson doesn't perform well, and that's training camp. If we remember, we were talking to George Bremer earlier today, and that's Matt Ryan didn't look good at points. Even Andrew Luck had some days where he was off. So this is where you want Anthony Richardson to kind of test the limits. You want Anthony Richardson to get out there and be aggressive with the football, kind of figure out what he can and can't do in those certain situations. This is about learning for Anthony Richardson. But overall, the first 2 days of camp, he's gotten off to a really, really good start. And I think that while the pads haven't been placed on yet, you should be encouraged about where Anthony Richardson's at.
For sure. And he's also, spreading it around. He's not a lot of young quarterbacks kind of glom on to one receiver that, is their security blanket. Yesterday, 4 completions to 4 different receivers. Today, 4 completions to 3 different receivers. Josh Downs got a couple of them, which, we can expect that. Him and Michael Pittman, I don't even know if he has a favorite receiver, but they're definitely 1A and 1B.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but coming up next, we're going to talk about the rest of the offense and some of the bigger things that we saw happen out there. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, whatever parts you're looking for, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or it's your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. So again, keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And if you guys are tired of watching the big talk shows with all the just outrageous hot takes and the screaming, make sure you just switch over to Locked On Sports Today. It's 24/7 for you on YouTube, and it's also now on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. So let's skip ahead to the rest of the offense. Obviously, Anthony is the marquee name, the straw that stirs the drink, really. But outside of Anthony, it was kind of not the best day for the rest of the offense. And really early in practice, I didn't know if it would be the best day for Anthony either. Like, he was fine during routes on air and everything, but nobody was catching the ball during, which is weird. Again, routes on air, not extremely strenuous work for them. And, they weren't having to extend themselves too far, but it was kind of a sloppy day from the supporting cast from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. And you talk about those routes on air. I think we had 3 tight ends in a row drop passes
Mm-hmm.
when they were doing it. Just kind of sloppy play out of the offense, and especially the offensive line. Multiple pre-snap penalties. You mentioned earlier in your camp notes on horseshoehuddle.com that Ryan Kelly at one point spiked the ball out of frustration because of that pre-snap penalties, and we'll talk about the defensive line here in a bit, but really the defensive line got after the Colts offensive line today. They just look rusty, and again, Braden Smith isn't out there. Blake Freeland is out there at right tackle, but that they were getting beat off the ball. And it seemed like they were allowing pressure back into the quarterback. No, it wasn't just when Anthony Richardson was out there. When Sam Ehlinger was out there, Sam Ehlinger was out there with the 2s because Joe Flacco was at Jacoby Jones' funeral today. So we saw more of Sam Ehlinger, more of Keaton Slovis today. But yeah, the offensive line up front definitely did not have their best day, and they were visibly frustrated about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the line forced Keaton Slovis to be Keaton fastest today. Okay. That's what you get here, guys. But no, so again, just to kind of go from the top, like we mentioned, Braden Smith and Joe Flacco both were out today. Smith has missed both practices with that knee injury. He didn't start on any injury list, so they'll ease him back in here shortly. Flacco, like Andrew said, was at Jacoby Jones' funeral, obviously former teammates with the Ravens. And the offense mainly focused on first and second downs today, which obviously opens up the playbook a lot. It explains a lot of the deeper passes because, as we'll mention in a minute, Richardson was not the only quarterback to be aggressive today. And then they had a session where they worked on runs and RPOs, which obviously they have the ultimate weapon for that in quarterback. But let's see. Some more lineup stuff. I think we're starting to see some more interesting integrations into the first team. If I'm not mistaken, the first receivers to go out with the first unit offense today were Pittman, Downs, and A.D. Mitchell.
Yes.
Alec Pierce got some work with the second team today with Sam Ehlinger, who was the de facto QB2 today. They did switch it up, and then Pierce got like a bunch of work in 7-on-7s with the first team. But they are being intentional about getting Mitchell into the mix. It feels a bit like Josh. I mean, again, we're only two days into this, but it feels like Josh Downs last year. I did ask Jim Bob Cooter today after practice, if how they integrated Josh Downs last year and ultimately had him win the slot receiver job, if that affects at all what they're doing with AD. He did not bite on that question whatsoever. He said, they're going by a case by case basis, but something we talked about after, like when you talk to these players and everything, when they mention the playmakers that they have on offense, they always talk Pittman and Downs and A.D. Mitchell. And to me, that already screams like this guy's a rookie, but they already view him as like a key part of the offense already. Like they've seen all spring and off season what he can do. And obviously he's doing some good things out here now. I have really started changing my tune over the last few days. I think Mitchell is going to be involved pretty quickly.
I do too. And especially because Mitchell starts out there with the ones, and it's a pretty even split right now between number one snaps with Mitchell and Pierce. It isn't a slow progression of Mitchell started with a few snaps in the ones, and he's getting more each day. They're about even already, and it's only day 2 of training camp. Now, if something happens where Mitchell really starts to struggle or Alec Pierce absolutely starts to dominate, could that change? Well, we'll have to see. But as of right now, A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce are splitting that 50-50. So I think you can look at that a couple different ways. Either the Colts really believe in what they have in A.D. Mitchell already and want to give him as much time with the ones as possible while still giving Alec Pierce a chance to prove himself, or they're really treating this like a straight up competition and want to give those guys an even number of snaps to go out and prove themselves. Now, I think when you look at that as a whole, though, Alec Pierce, you can still read into that, even if that's the case, because both days now, Alec Pierce has started with the 2s, A.D. Mitchell started with the 1s, and then they flipped. So, but it does seem like Pierce can be an afterthought at times when you talk, like you mentioned, when you talk about the playmakers for this team, talk about Mitchell's always talked about and his potential. And then at times you hear people say, well, we have Alec Pierce too, or some of the players, coaches, and there's Alec Pierce too. It's never starting out with Alec Pierce and then talking about AD Mitchell. So I think that's, while maybe they're not intentionally saying it that way, I think that kind of speaks volumes about where this team views AD Mitchell and his explosiveness and his ability to produce for this offense. Compared to what Alec Pierce can be in his role. And I don't think this means that Alec Pierce is going to be limited to about 10 snaps per game, because there are still many things that Alec Pierce does better than AD Mitchell. I mean, he's bigger than AD Mitchell. He's definitely a better blocker than AD Mitchell is at this point, and he's going to be used in the run game a lot. But at the same time, the Colts have, just without saying anything, they've made it clear that they at least view Mitchell, I think, as on the same level as Alec Pierce at this point.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised. I mean, it's not going to be a Mackenzie Downs situation. Like, they're not going to cut Alec Pierce. Like, Pierce is still going to be a decent part of this offense. I just think when it comes to the passing game, Mitchell is, I imagine he's going to be a bigger part initially. Like, I thought it would be gradual where, Pierce would start out up here and then it would eventually fluctuate. But Mitchell might start out a bigger part of the passing game right away, but Pierce could still play more snaps, to be honest with you.
And it could go week to week too. If the Colts are
matchup based.
If the Colts could go up against the team where they're really going to focus on running the football with Jonathan Taylor and using the quarterback run game with Anthony Richardson, we might see Pierce out snap AD Mitchell. However, I think on a if we're talking about just a regular basis, it's trending that AD Mitchell is going to end up winning that X wide receiver role, whether he's starting or not. I don't know if that's relevant. I do think that Mitchell's on his way to out snapping Alec Pierce at that spot, and we're only 2 practices in. So if you're an AD Mitchell fan, that's great news for you, because it seems like the Colts are very excited for not only what he is now, but what he's going to bring to this offense in the fall.
Yep. Stock up, fellow fantasy nerds. All right, a few guys I wanted to mention before we hop over to the defense. So Jelani Woods had a pretty good offseason. We are getting sprayed with sprinklers right now, a little residual mist, so we'll see how that goes. So Jelani Woods had a really good offseason. He showed off a lot of the stuff that made you excited as a rookie. He made plays downfield, whether he caught the ball downfield or caught it, in motion and then picked up enough yards after to make a chunk play. On Thursday, day 1, he had 2 not great drops. One of them would have for sure been a touchdown that hit him in both hands in between 2 defenders. And the other one would have been more of a challenge, but it would have been inside the 5-yard line. So not his best first day of camp. But today, I thought he made a play that he really needed. I think it was Keaton Slovis hit him up the right seam for about 20 yards. Woods had to go up and get it a little bit, and he came down with it, again, in traffic. There was a couple defenders right there. So I thought Woods really needed that. And then 2 guys who made big plays downfield, because, again, I mentioned there was kind of fireworks today. Kylan Granson had like a 40-yard it was mostly air yards. Was that from Ellinger?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was kind of down the right sideline as well, around the numbers. And then Anthony Gould had another big play from about 40 yards as well on a post across the field. So Gould is a guy who, again, he's kind of stacking these things. He's kind of reminding me of the offseason and camp that Jalen Jones had last year, where you maybe don't talk about him a lot, but like the things he's asked to do, he's successfully doing them. And it could mean that he's going to go higher up on the depth chart. But yeah, Gould keeps making plays. Like, he's a deep ball specialist already. On this show, we've talked about like his gadget ability and basically being this year's Isaiah McKenzie, but like the dude is doing a lot downfield.
Yeah, I think he's showing to be more versatile than originally let on. Like, because of the downfield stuff, he isn't just a guy that is going to do gadget stuff in the backfield. He is showing that he is a more well-rounded slot receiver. And I think that's good for the Colts, because if something does happen to Josh Downs, I'm not saying Anthony Gould is the same type of player as Josh Downs. Josh Downs is a very, very good player, but you won't have to completely switch up your offense. Anthony Gould, I think, can can come in and do a lot of the same things as Josh Downs, because while Josh Downs is a smaller wide receiver, he's not somebody that you only use around the line of scrimmage. We saw that last season, that Josh Downs can get deep and win deep, and I think Anthony Gould can do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of talked about that as well. You think Gould is like fifth or sixth on the depth chart, but it's like if Josh Downs has to miss a game, Gould's probably starting there in the slot. You never know. But coming up, the defense had its day, and we're going to talk to you all about it, including someone who all of you want to hear positive things about. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board either. They actually help you hire professionals who you can't find anywhere else, even if they aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, which you can supply. Are you a stats nerd? I'll throw some at you. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, then you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. And then 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So as you can see, LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and don't always have the time and resources to actually do the hiring, and they've got your back. It's why they are constantly finding new ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, which makes the process even easier because that monotonous stuff gets so boring, but they got you covered. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, defense, baby. We got some interesting things here today, and then we talked to Gus Bradley afterward, which kind of added a little bit of context. So let's just start with kind of some lineup stuff. Some guys who weren't necessarily with the ones right away, but they definitely worked into the mix their fair share. Rookie Jalen Carlisle went in and was in base defense, was the will linebacker, and then EJ Speed would go over to Sam/Otto. Gus Bradley confirmed that for us after practice. And then Ronnie Harrison, much to some people's chagrin, but it's still kind of interesting, has been working into the free safety rotation. I still think it's Nick Cross's job to lose. He's still the one who's going out there first. Another one, I am pretty convinced at this point that the third corner spot is Jalen Jones until notified otherwise. They like Dallas Flowers does come in a little bit, but like he very much seems like an integral part of the fabric of that defense now. Like it's always him going out there next. I mean, Kenny and Juju are easily entrenched as the top two, but when that third corner comes in, it's pretty much always Jalen Jones. And so I'm just going to be of the belief that it's his job and something would probably have to happen to him for Flowers to come in. I think everyone still likes Flowers around here. I'd be okay with him starting. I think the Colts would be okay with him starting, but Jalen's kind of earned the right to lose that job, so to speak.
Yeah, and he hasn't done anything to lose it at this point either. There were reps today where Jones was going up with Michael Pittman and holding his own. So again, he's putting together the same type of training camp that he did last season. I mean, we're only 2 days in, and a lot can still happen. But last season, Jalen Jones, he didn't make any mental errors. He was never out of position, and you never saw him make a big mistake. He hasn't done that so far either. He's been lockstep with every wide receiver. I don't think he gave up a reception today in any 11-on-11 period or 7-on-7. Jalen Jones was at the hip of every wide receiver he covered. And then getting back to the linebackers, it is very interesting to talk about Jalen Carlisle and his role and why he might be playing into why Ronnie Harrison is back there at safety. Because if you are going to give those third linebacker reps to Carlisle, and as Gus Bradley mentioned it, he said that today, last year, whenever Ronnie Harrison was on the field, good things happened for us. So they want to continue to have Ronnie Harrison within the rotation, but at linebacker, you already have Zaire Franklin, who's going to play 100% of the snaps. EJ Speed is likely up there as well. The Colts want to get Jalen Carlisle involved as a 5th-round pick, and they have high hopes for what he can become as a linebacker. So I think that's played a really big part into why the Colts have moved Ronnie Harrison back to safety. And who knows, if Jalen Carlisle really starts to impress on those early downs where the Colts are in their base defense, and especially in the passing game, I think it could lead to a bigger role in the season, especially if someone like EJ Speed ends up struggling in pass coverage.
Yeah, and then so Carlisle's capitalized on that again today. During OTAs or minicamp, one of the two, he had an interception, had another one today. This one was against the second team, so Sam Ellinger. But Amir Speed came in and batted up a pass from the intended receiver, and Carlisle was there to pick it off and run it away. All the hoots and hollers from the defense. So they're all kind of rallying around him as well. So, I mean, it's a guy that he's making plays, and guys who make plays tend to stick around and earn more playing time. Gus, after practice, did say that Carlisle's played well today, but they're going to get him some looks at the Sam and Otto spot there on the outside coming up soon. So they're going to move him around and see what they've got there. Let's look at the defensive line, though, because that really was kind of the star of the show. Kwity Paye had a couple sacks. The first one I had him splitting with Samson Ebukam. EJ Speed, I thought, had a big day. He had, at minimum, a would-be QB hit on Richardson. You could maybe count it as a sack. And then just like one or two plays later, went and helped blow up an outside run play against Jonathan Taylor. And then the rookie first-round pick, Laiatu Latu, very impressed with him today. He's a guy who, obviously, he's got all the tools in his belt. He has so many moves. But literally the way he moves and his bend and everything, I think sets him apart. Like if he's going for just the speed rush, the dip and bend around the outside, which it feels like he puts Jake Witt in hell, like routinely. Like I feel bad for Jake Witt, but he gets so low with his bend and so out of the tackle's reach that he like disappears. It's like you see him lined up at the beginning of the play, totally lose him, and then there he is in the backfield.
Yeah, Latu has been making life very, very hard for Jake Witt and Matt Gonsalves. He hasn't really taken any snaps with the first team defensive line. It's really been Ebukam that's gone out there against Bernard Ryman. So I'm interested to see once the pads get on and maybe they do the one-on-ones. I want to see how Latu can go up against Bernard Ryman, Braden Smith when he's back, Blake Freeland. But on the other side, when you talk about Kwity Paye going up against Blake Freeland, Kwity Paye had a day. He really did. He looks more explosive. Yeah. And I know you talked with Eddie about his offseason and Kwity even talked about it on Thursday about him working out 4 to 5 times a day. It seems like there's something that's a switch has been flipped with Kwity Paye, not only with how he is approaching the game, but his tenacity on the field. Going out there, and while he had 2 sacks of Richardson, there were multiple pressures of Richardson as well for Kwity Paye. So again, I think we've talked about this before in training camp where Kwity has done well. Can he translate that to the regular season? We won't know that until September and October, but if he can, man, that's such a boost to this Colts defensive line. If you can get the 10 sacks or 9.5, 10 sacks that Kwity had last year, but get consistent pressure along with that, that is going to be huge for this Colts defensive line and for the success of the Colts defense in general.
Yeah, for them to improve on the 51 sacks they already had, I think a lot of us point to, they had the Indy record 51 sacks and they add Latu, but they still have young guys who are getting better. Like you can expect Dio to at least take the minimum step forward. Kwity Paye has apparently totally transformed this offseason. So like not only are you adding Latu, but you're getting these other younger guys who are really close in age to him getting better too. So like it's improvement across the board in terms of the defensive line and the pass rush. A couple other young guys I wanted to mention before we hop off here. This is someone I'm pleased to talk about because I've never had to talk about him before, but Amir Speed, the cornerback, who it's insane to me that the Colts have 2 guys on the same defense with the same last name, Speed. We don't talk about that enough, but I'm going to talk about Amir a little bit. I thought he had a good day. Again, he had the pass breakup or the batted pass that led to Carlisle taking it out of the air and picking it off. And I also thought he used his size to advantage a lot today. There was at least 1 or 2 plays where he just boxed out the intended receiver from being able to get it. And it was very Jalen Jones-ish to me. Again, Jones isn't like a big highlight player. He's not going to get a bunch of turnovers or anything, but he knows how to use his frame, and that, like, speed's a big guy. I don't have his size right in front of me, but he's just as big as any other corner on this roster.
Yeah, I think so. And we haven't really seen Speed produce much out there. This is really the first time we've actually seen him go up and make some plays out there. And I think he's probably on the outside looking in of making the 53-man roster. And it's going to take plays like that consistently, not only in practices, but in the joint practices against the Arizona Cardinals, the Cincinnati Bengals, and then going out there and performing in the preseason matchups and on teams.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. He did obviously get a little bit of work in near the end of the season, and again, it's a numbers game, so he's probably more of a practice squad guy. But one of the guys who might earn a spot because he was a draft pick this year, Jalen Simpson was the other guy I was wanting to talk about. Hadn't noticed much from him in the spring, so I've been waiting to see him make a little play here or there. One of my favorite traits in a corner, especially young corner, is confidence and comfort to be able to, like, it doesn't matter who you're going up against. You're going to go and be aggressive for the ball as well. And, I mean, Alec Pierce was working a lot with the second team today, which meant Simpson was lined up against Pierce. Now, Pierce has been starting in the NFL for 2 years now. So for Simpson to go toe-to-toe with him and, fight for the inside leverage on slant routes and, like, break up a pass that Pierce is also going for, like, that seems like, yeah, of course he's supposed to do that. But a lot of young corners aren't confident enough to do that. They're just thinking too much, and they're just trying to be in the right spot. But Simpson is a step ahead of that, to where he is comfortable knowing he's in the right spot, but is trying to make a play now after that.
And when you're playing cornerback, which is probably one of the hardest and most, one of the positions that you're looking at where you have to have confidence, because you can get picked on, and you can go from playing great the entire game, and then you make a mistake and you give up a big touchdown, and that's all anyone remembers you for. So yeah. Jalen Simpson, coming out of Auburn, playing all that time in the SEC, has seen his fair share of NFL competition in the SEC, and I think he really attributes a lot of his confidence to that, and he knows that he can play in the NFL. So definitely something to watch, because he could factor into that backup role, probably behind Juju Brents.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. I think his main competition is probably Darrell Baker. I mean, we can obviously toss Amir Speed into that as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. It's obviously competitions we'll keep you guys abreast of throughout camp. But that's going to do it for us today. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with Zach and I directly and get the inside scoop from here at Grand Park, follow the link in our show notes. I've already been answering people's questions and sending out little nuggets that I'm seeing out here, so it's well worth it. And again, if you don't already, follow Andrew and the Horseshoe Huddle podcast on YouTube, his partner Drake Wally. Andrew, you're at Andrew Moore NFL on Twitter. I won't say X. For us, at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2. Also, be sure to subscribe on YouTube wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, that's the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, as well as Locked On Colts. We would love your guys' ratings and reviews as well. And with that, we will see you guys after practice number 3 tomorrow night. It's going to be a late one. Practice starts at 4 p.m., which means it's going to be a long night.